house at the end of Willow Lane looked perfect from the outside. Wide white columns, manicured lawns, and windows that gleamed like crystal. But inside that grand home, silence lived like a ghost. It lingered in every hallway, in every empty laugh, and most painfully, in the heart of 9-year-old Liam Morgan. 2 years had passed since his mother, Susan, had taken her last breath, yet the echo of her love still haunted the rooms she once filled with warmth. The boy who used to chase sunlight through the garden now sat by the window every day, staring at the same spot where he used to see her waving. And his father, Jack Morgan, a man once known for his brilliance, drive, and success, buried himself deeper and deeper into work, as if building his business could somehow mend what death had taken from him. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the healing power of love, then pause for a moment, dear friends. Hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Loom, where stories remind us that hearts can be mended in the most unexpected ways. Jack Morgan had built an empire in the world of tech startups, yet he couldn't build peace in his own home. Every corner of that spacious house reminded him of what he'd lost. His wife's laughter echoing faintly in the dining room, the scent of her perfume still trapped in her favorite chair, the gentle lullabies she once sang to Liam. But grief had hardened him. He started working longer hours, often coming home after midnight. He told himself he was doing it for Liam, to give his son everything. But what Liam needed wasn't money. It was a hand to hold when nightmares came, a voice to whisper that everything would be okay. Liam, once full of questions and giggles, had stopped talking much at all. He began spending hours by himself, clutching the old photo of his parents, asking silently why his mother had to go. At school, he sat alone during recess. Teachers called Jack, expressing concern, but he barely heard them. He thought time would heal everything. Didn't. Instead, distance grew like ivy between father and son, wrapping its cold vines around what little love was left in the open. Then, one evening, after a particularly tense dinner where Liam hadn't spoken a single word, Jack realized something that made his chest ache. His son was fading, not physically, but in spirit. And Jack, despite all his success, had no idea how to reach him. That night, he sat in his study, staring at the framed photo of his late wife. "You'd know what to do," he whispered to the empty room. "You always did." The silence answered him back. Then a thought began to form in his mind. Maybe what Liam needed was a new mother, someone to bring warmth back into his life, someone who could do what Jack no longer knew how to. And so, with the best of intentions but the poorest understanding, Jack began inviting women, elegant, well-dressed, charming women from his business circles. They came with practiced smiles and expensive perfume, speaking softly about children, about home, about love. But none of them looked beyond the size of the house or the brand of the furniture. Liam, who watched them quietly from behind the staircase, saw through it all. To him, they were strangers trying to replace what could never be replaced. The next Saturday, when another guest arrived, Liam couldn't take it anymore. He slipped out through the back door and hid behind the old oak tree in the yard, the same tree under which his mother used to read to him. Tears welled up as he pressed his face into his knees, trying not to cry. That's when he heard a gentle voice. "Liam!" It was Mary, the housekeeper. She had been working for the Morgans for a few months now, quietly keeping the home in order, never asking for more than her small salary. But more than once, she had found Liam trembling in the night after a nightmare. She never told Jack about those moments. She'd simply sit by his bed, whispering soothing words, brushing his hair, telling him that it was okay to cry. When she saw him that afternoon, hidden behind the tree, she didn't ask why. She just sat down beside him on the grass. "It's okay," she said softly. "Sometimes hearts need time to talk. We can just sit here if you want." And they did. The sun slipped lower, casting golden light across the yard, and for the first time in a long while, Liam felt safe enough to breathe freely. Inside, the sound of laughter, forced, polished laughter, floated from the living room. Jack was entertaining his guest, unaware that the only real comfort his son had ever found in months sat right outside his window. Later that evening, as the guests were about to leave, something unexpected happened. Liam walked into the living room. His face was pale but determined. His small voice trembled but carried the weight of truth. "Dad," he said, "I don't want any of them. I want Mary to be my mom." The silence that followed was sharp enough to break glass. The guests looked away, embarrassed. Mary froze, color draining from her face. And Jack, proud, wounded, confused, felt anger surge through him. He thought Mary had manipulated the boy's emotions. He thought she had overstepped. Without listening, without asking for explanation, he told her to pack her things and leave that same day. Mary tried to speak, to tell him that she never meant any harm, but he refused to hear. By nightfall, she was gone. From that day, the Morgan house grew colder. Liam stopped talking altogether. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't go to school. He just sat by the window, staring into the garden where he and Mary had once played with fallen leaves. Sometimes, Jack would see him there and feel an ache deep in his chest, but he didn't know how to fix it. He tried to distract himself with work, but his mind was never quiet. Guilt began to whisper louder than success ever had. Then, one morning, as Jack prepared for another day at the office, a loud thud echoed through the hall. He ran to Liam's room and found his son collapsed on the floor, pale and unconscious. Panic swallowed him whole. The next hour was a blur of sirens, rushing doctors, and hospital corridors when the doctor finally came out. His expression was calm but serious. "Mr. Morgan," he said gently, "your son isn't sick, not in the way you think. He's suffering from emotional exhaustion. This child doesn't need a stepmother. He needs someone who truly cares about him." The words hit Jack like a storm. Someone who truly cares. He sat there long after the doctor left, holding his head in his hands, realizing what he had done. The image of Mary, her kind eyes, her patience, her quiet understanding, filled his mind. She had been there for Liam when he wasn't, and he had cast her out. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, Jack drove through the older part of town, searching for the address the employment agency had on file. He found her in a small, tidy room above a bakery. When she opened the door, she looked surprised but not bitter. "Mary," he said, his voice trembling, "I was wrong. I let my pride hurt the two people who needed you most. Liam, he's not the same without you. Please come back. He needs you." For a long moment, Mary said nothing. Then she nodded, her eyes soft with understanding. "Children feel what words can't fix," she whispered. "Let's go." When they arrived back at the house, Liam was sitting on the couch, listless, staring at the window. The moment he saw Mary, his eyes widened. He leapt to his feet, ran across the room, and threw his arms around her. His small voice broke through tears as he said, "I thought you were gone forever." Mary held him tight. "I'll never leave you again," she whispered. That evening, laughter returned to the Morgan house. Quiet at first, but real. Jack stood in the doorway watching them, feeling something shift inside him. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. Days turned into weeks. Jack began to spend more time at home, learning to cook with Mary, helping Liam with his homework, rediscovering how to live instead of just exist. Slowly, something beautiful and unexpected began to grow between Jack and Mary. Not the grand passion of fairy tales, but a steady, honest love built on respect, kindness, and shared healing. 6 months later, on a soft spring morning, the garden was filled with laughter once again. There were white ribbons fluttering in the breeze, a small table covered in flowers, and the scent of hope in the air. Jack and Mary stood beneath the oak tree, the same one where she had once found Liam crying, and exchanged vows in a simple ceremony. Liam, in a small suit that made him look like a young gentleman, carried the rings. His smile that day could have lit up the whole world. As he placed the rings in his father's hand, he looked up at the sky, his voice barely a whisper. "Mom," he said softly, "thank you for bringing Mary to us." In that moment, the wind seemed to move gently through the branches, and somewhere deep inside, Jack felt like Susan was smiling too. If the story touched your heart, dear friends, take a moment now. Give this video a like, share it with someone who needs a reminder that love can heal even the deepest wounds, and don't forget to subscribe to Kindness Loom for more stories that celebrate the beauty of compassion and second chances. Before you go, we'd love to know, where in the world are you watching this story from? Leave a comment below so we can appreciate and connect with every one of you. Your stories, your kindness, and your presence keep this community alive. Because sometimes, the most beautiful families aren't the ones we're born into, they're the ones we build with love. Red Heart.